Where is the synodal way for traditional Catholics? Catholics that want more and not less. Apparently, some bishops are like, we don't care about them. Let them go.
It's a good thing Our Lady has warned us about sometimes times like these, or even just the history of the church, right? That open letter to confused Catholics that Archbishop Lefebvre wrote in the 70s, I think it was, feels like it just came out yesterday.
Yeah, I heard from some bishops that if they don't want to accept the newer form of the liturgy, they can remain at home and can go to the Lefebvrians.
Dr. Taylor Marshall on his podcast proposed the theory that he felt like there was going to be a corralling of traditional Catholics into this one bucket, and then the liberal faction of Holy Mother Church would then have the ability to sort of attack that bucket with all of its resources. Do you think Cardinal Muller is referring to this? Is this the idea? Is this the strategy?
Ooh, but God help you if you want a traditional Latin Mass.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
I saw this comment from His Eminence Cardinal Müller on the World Over Live with Raymond Arroyo, because if they want unity with the Protestants, why don't they want unity with Catholics? Have a listen to this.
The Good Shepherd looks to the common good of the church and of the single person. And not this authoritarianism is not Catholic.
Do you think this? Do you see this as cruel to the faithful? What's happening?
Yeah, I heard from some bishops that if they don't want to accept the newer form of the liturgy, they can remain at home and can go to the Lefebvrians, and that is not a Catholic understanding. No? We must be very open, speak with the people in a good dialogue, in a synodal way, to speak together. And because it's not the question of the doctrine.
Yeah.
With the doctrine, is Jesus through God and man, there is no compromise possible.
Where is the synodal way for traditional Catholics? Catholics that want more and not less. Apparently, some bishops are like, we don't care about them. Let them go. Jordan Pacheco is here from the Glad Trad podcast to weigh in on all of this. Good morning to you, Jordan. Thank you for your time.
Hey, happy to be here, Joe. Good morning.
Well, your kind ain't welcome, brother. You know that?
No, you're completely right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Where is the synodal way for you and your kind, your traditionalists?
Well, can we drop the term finally? I was hoping, I like Mueller a lot, so I think he's a little tongue in cheek, but man, I am so sick of this term because nobody has ever defined it or what it means. But yes, as far as I understand the synodal way, I've noticed a very particular thing. Synodal way means that it's fine to dialogue with the Muslims and it's fine to dialogue with Catholics who are in irregular relationships or something, but those bad, rad, nasty trads, we don't want your kind here, as you pointed out. And I love how there are indeed, His Eminence talks about the attitude, which unfortunately has been adopted by a lot of bishops, including some here in America, right? Which is like, hey, if you don't go to the new Mass, if you don't quote unquote accept the new form, even if you accept it, but you have a preference for Latin Mass, that's too bad. We would much rather you stay home, apparently, or go to the SSPX, which I think is a far better option than staying home, by the way.
But there's many Catholics who I would argue are traditional Catholics that won't go to a Mass unless it's a traditional Latin Mass. So they just won't go at all. They're happy to stay at home, which I don't know. I scratch my head on that, to be honest with you. So you have this group of Catholics that are already in that mode. And now you have a growing, is it a growing? I have no idea. He didn't mention how many bishops said this, but some number of bishops that are like, yeah, we're okay with it. Whatever, just leave us alone. Like they seem to be okay with a segment of Catholics who are getting further and further separated rather than unity. But yet at the same time, they'll beat this drum, as they did yesterday with the release of this document, that for the sake of unity, we shouldn't use this term co-redemptrix. Like, that is the most bizarre thinking. I scratch my head at it all.
Yeah, it's very strange times, and it's a good thing Our Lady has warned us about sometimes times like these, or even just the history of the church, right? I think that it should be very frustrating for traditional and non-traditional Catholics alike that open letter to confused Catholics that Archbishop Lefebvre wrote in the 70s, I think it was, feels like it just came out yesterday. I was thinking, I was listening I was reading an article about what Cardinal Muller said, and it talks about how we live in a world where fiducia supplicans, he's talking about, right? That we're talking about these issues of unity, and yet we've had documents, Traditionis Custodes, Fiducia Supplicans that have come out from the Vatican that have been nothing but divisive, so much so that the entire African church said nope to Fiducia Supplicans. Our dialogue, our great interreligious dialogue with the Coptics was essentially suspended because of Fiducia. Ooh, but God help you if you want a traditional Latin Mass. And I think it's because obviously a Cardinal Roche said this a couple of years ago, and I think it's become kind of the battle cry. You can have the Mass of Trent, but you can't have the theology of Trent. So right. Traditionalists kind of serve, I think, as that bellwether, as that sort of mark of, unfortunately, the question of, is the church, or are there, more accurate to say, actors inside the church who have been attempting to change her theology, to change her liturgy in such a way that has been nothing but damaging to the faithful. And until that whole thing gets solved, probably in a church council, you're still going to get thorns in the side, I think, of the most progressive of cardinals and bishops who really, really don't like the Traditional Latin Mass and pretend that, oh, trads are so divisive, but really don't even go to their parishes, don't talk to them deliberately, so they can kind of keep them pushed aside as the redheaded stepchildren.
Remember, it was like maybe 5 years ago or something like that. Dr. Taylor Marshall on his podcast proposed the theory that he felt like there was going to be a corralling of traditional Catholics into this one bucket, and then obviously the liberal faction of Holy Mother Church would then have the ability to sort of attack that bucket with all of its resources. Do you think Cardinal Muller is referring to this? Is this the idea? Is this the strategy?
I mean, especially the last 10 years under Francis, on some hand, I'd say, well, we really saw that. And other times he would admittedly surprise me a little bit. So perhaps Muller, I'm sure he's very much aware of it, especially being out of Germany. I mean, if we think that being a trad is hard in North Carolina right now or other places, which it is, imagine what it's like to be in Germany, which is a whole horse of a different heretical color. But I will say something very, very interesting. And that's that, again, this is a problem that I do think that the weight of history is also solving organically. Who is joining the progressive faction of Catholicism right now? Nobody. If anybody is under the age of 40 and a Catholic right now, they're not progressives. Otherwise, they just want to be Catholic, quite frankly. There's no merit to being a cultural Catholic that there might have been 20, 30 years ago. So everyone that I meet around, even those friends of mine who are conservative Catholic, they attend the Novus Ordo, they don't really have, it seems like, a strong interest in the Traditional Latin Mass, nonetheless are trending very, very rapidly traditional. I see a lot of young priests who are doing this also, who may celebrate the new Mass, but really love bringing these traditional elements back in. And I think it's just a matter of osmosis in some cases. So I'm like, give the church 10, 20 years. This problem, this question of the Traditional Latin Mass is not going away. If anything, obviously it's getting stronger. And the internet has helped. I think more clear arguments from traditionalists have helped. Just again, I think the fact that Christ wants the church unified. And I do find that the Holy Spirit is very much on the side of just the full truth of the Catholic Church, which I think a lot of traditional Catholics are really, really holding to.
So far, under the pontificate of Leo XIV, we have seen some nods towards traditionalism, even though we, as you pointed out, North Carolina, of course, Detroit, Texas, and other parts have still, I would say, persecuted the traditional Catholics is the way I would characterize it. I'm sure they would characterize it in a different way. But we've also seen some nods to the traditional community as well under Pope Leo. He's approved 2 now extensions, as far as I know. 2 might have been more extensions to TLM communities in dioceses, one in Texas, and I forget where the other one was. So do you see is there a change? Can we be somewhat hopeful under Leo that eventually he'll come to the total rescue of trads everywhere, or is this just going to be a slow burn through however many years of the Leo pontificate?
You know that my joke is that sanguines weren't allowed into the church conversation until the last 50 years, which I think is great. That's, maybe this is one of the great fruits of the age. But because I have so many trad friends who are always like, bro, it's so over. Like the Pope is going to just be as bad as Francis. Like they just kind of wait. And I think that's such a bad, traditional conservative people, I think naturally have almost a pessimistic tendency sometimes because you just want to be the first one to hop on your podcast and say that it's over. That being said, the Holy Father has made some very positive nods. We know that he plays his cards extremely close to his chest, but the fact we cannot make this a small thing. Cardinal Burke was essentially chased out of the Vatican, right? His apartment taken from him. You could not have a traditional Latin Mass at anywhere but the crypt. at St. Peter's. And now we have the fact that we've had pontifical masses, not just with Cardinal Burke, but with the SSPX. I mean, these have been very fascinating things to see. And so I do believe, as Cardinal Burke has reported, as other bishops have reported, that His Holiness is trying, I think, his best, which is also his natural disposition, to listen and to be very, very careful with what he does. I think it would be very possible to see that Traditionis Custodes gets repealed, because I do have hope still for Pope Leo XIV. I don't think he's done anything which I've been like, it's so over. Some things I'm like, but what you gonna do? Maybe we stop kind of the funny little blessings of icebergs and stuff. That's, I can take it though if he leaves Traditionis Custodes, right? Yeah, if he did that and was like, hey, Traditionis Custodes is gone, I'd be like, that's fine. Do what you will. I don't care.
All they gotta do is call me. I'd be happy to offer free advice before they do anything. Just call me up and I'll let you know.
He coming from the United States of America too. I mean, the reality is, like, the faith has a very different but a very vibrant cultural point here in the United States. The Latin Mass and traditional Latin Mass is not a political issue so deeply as I think it is in South America. I've heard this reported from some South American friends, where the divide is very much sometimes like almost, it's a Marxist continent. So, this divide comes down on it. So I'm hoping that His Holiness, just for the sake of real serious unity, understands that his traditional sons and daughters really do love him, that they love the Catholic faith. So many of them, myself included, have had our faith restored or deepened because of the traditional Latin Mass. And it's not enough just to say, well, you could just do the Latin Mass or the Novus Ordo in Latin or something. It's a fundamental shift of theology that is obviously caused so much damage to the church. And I'm not saying it's going to get solved under Leo, but I do think it's going to just continue under Leo, because Francis tried to really squelch it out for the most part. Then he would do something funny or two to give some nods. But yet what happened? It grew. I mean, the end of Mass of the Ages, episode 3, right? They talk about how most bishops didn't implement Traditionis. And I still think most probably are not on the side of really trying to do anything more with it. I think everyone's kind of waiting to see what Leo does. And I hope he does something very, very beautiful in regard to the TLM.
Yeah, we're down to about a minute here with Jordan in this segment. We'll have you back for the after show, obviously, to continue. But I'm remembering about a year ago when we were visiting Niagara Falls at the conference there, and we were there from Buffalo. And you and my sons got into this big debate with these wackadoodle Protestants that were just like low information. And it's like, it's a never ending battle. You'd be there now if I didn't break it up. You'd still be there just beating your head against the brick wall of, I refuse to listen to you. And I bring it up just to say, I'm going to give you the last comment here, that the Vatican's approach to the co-redemptrix is to say, we want unity, so let's take away the hard bits. Like, it's already hard. Like, you're not helping, you're only making it worse. What say you?
Yeah. So, in regards, again, we live in a time of contradiction, and that's because man is a contradictory creature. So the church has been very confusing in all ways, I'm sure, but especially now. Yeah. On one hand, yes, we talk about unity. We have entire statements from Abu Dhabi and stuff talking about how Muslims, Christians, and Jews all worship the same God. La-di-di-di-da, it's all good and fine. But when it comes, we talk about how the Orthodox are A-okay, right? There was a question of, is there a Muslim prayer rug in the Vatican right now or not? And yet when it comes again back to kind of traditionalists, people who are holding fast, I think, to a very, very whole view of Catholicism, it is a bellwether against the reforms. And until we get a question of the Missal, until we get a question of what Vatican II actually teaches in regards to the liturgy and to Latin, until we get to a question about liturgical music and practice traditional devotions, we're always going to have this confusion, because there are so many members of the church who just absolutely refuse to go, quote unquote, back, even though that obviously is the way forward.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.